Well, I did not have Kyle O'Reilly as the person who would cause Moxley to tap out. I feel like I was questioning whether O'Reilly and Strong should be in this match. It's just like such a big match. And I know you got to have people to take bumps, and it's not always, 5 top stars or 6 top stars or whatever. But I was like, I don't know. Do they fit? I know it's a conglomeration and all that. And I said it was a small criticism, but it was sort of like, maybe give someone else an opportunity to star in this one. I didn't really have any specifics in mind. But if he heard me, he's like, okay, I'm going to bleed more than Ric Flair ever bled in Greensboro. And then he's like, and I'm going to get Tony Khan to let me tap out Moxley. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a rehabilitation of Kyle O'Reilly a bit. I don't know if that should be the top story coming out of this. I think the top story is the other person involved in that, which is Mox tapping out and what the fallout from that is going to be from, Pac and the teammates. It was kind of the speculation going in that maybe Mox would tap out and that would lead to some consternation amongst his teammates. It would lead to a Darby Mox alliance. I think things were sort of set up for that. We could start in so many different places. It was a 2.5 hours of 3 matches on a Rick Steamboat FTR angle. A lot to delve into here in a different way than for a normal show. Chris, I will throw to you your thoughts on the finish of that main event. We'll get into kind of macro and micro other topics soon.
This show was so conflicting for me because I have thoughts on both sides. I, like you, was shocked at the ending. I figured Strong or O'Reilly were only in there to take the fall, to tap out or do something crazy. But if you look at the end of that match, they absolutely delivered. Like, I have never seen Roderick Strong in AEW look that good. I don't think I've seen him look that good since his ROH days when he was top of the card. He was, I mean, apart from the fact that he can't put anyone through a table, I think the final score was like Roderick 2, tables 5. He looked like a real threat. Kyle O'Reilly looked like an absolute technical master and a genius. You would not know that they had been booked so poorly for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
I thought, it was shocking. It was a crazy way to finish it. But the payoff of that Jon Moxley escaping angle that we've seen for the past few weeks, I didn't think we were going to get a payoff, and we did. And I do have to give credit for that. It was surprising, but it's the kind of nice surprise that I wish we got more of from AEW.
So you're conflicted. I want to get this out because I don't want to dwell on it, but I think philosophically we have to talk about a couple things here. I don't know. We can go long on it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have no rules here. Is two things. Is it too much violence where we get numb to it? Now I'm going to expand it beyond 2. But related to that, a subset of that is it too violent, one, for the viewers, and is it too violent for the wrestlers? Did they take too many chances of physical risk? Chair shot to the head on top of the cage, Darby getting set on fire, like legit, he had to roll to put out the flames. We could go on about that. And then kind of the second topic is, do they hurt the whole concept of blood and guts when neither match took place inside the cage? So the cage becomes a playground, a prop, a structure, but it doesn't actually, there's not even there's no commitment to being like, okay, we're going to tell the story as if they really are locked inside and they can't get out. Is it worth it creatively, since the precedent has been set, fans don't really expect it, to go ahead and leave the cage? Take either of those and comment on them, Chris.
So I'll do both. Was it too violent? I'm actually pleasantly surprised, and I'm going to surprise a lot of people in the chat here. With what we've seen over the past couple of years, with people being suffocated with plastic bags and having syringes stuck through their cheeks and so on, I was terrified what could actually happen here. And honestly, there was nothing here that we haven't seen before. They didn't try to go an extra step. I was really scared when they took Darby on top of the stage with a belt around his neck. I thought they're actually going to hang this man. But they avoided that. They avoided trying to go too far with the fire angle. It looked as safe as something like that could be. Darby has been set on fire enough that he knows how to roll out of it. They didn't do anything crazy with the staples. I mean, stapling someone's hand, it's going to hurt for a few seconds, but we've seen...
Assuming the staple even gets through.
Yeah, and it fell out. We saw it fall out of his jeans on one of the hands. It looked worse than it actually was. And I was pleasantly surprised that they didn't try and one-up themselves, partly because they can't, but also they didn't even try, which I was happy with. As for the outside the cage thing, I put that in my notes and then I crossed it out for a couple of reasons. First one being, in the women's match, The way they got out of the cage was innovative, and I really enjoyed it, where they slipped through the trusses between the rings. I'm fine with that. But I don't think we've ever seen a blood and guts match stay in the ring. So what is the point of the roof on the cage? I hear what you're saying, and I think for the men's match in particular, it was annoying. The women's match, I didn't mind it because it was smart. But what is the point of it if they're going to find a relatively straightforward way to escape? And the beatdown of Mark Briscoe and his delayed entrance kind of was pointless in the long run. It didn't lead to a turn. It didn't lead to a debut. It was just, we didn't know what the order of entry was. So making him come out later on did nothing really.
Well, I'll interject. I think what it did is it gave the heels the advantage that heels always get for 10 minutes. Or not even 10, but a few extra minutes, because it gave the heels an advantage late in the match. And I guess the Don Callis family kind of fulfilling what they talked about last week on Dynamite and Saturday on Collision. I'll just throw those in as I would say they would defend that. Yeah.
But in terms of outside the cage, it did bug me. And then having Gabe Kidd show up again. I mean, I'm a huge Gabe Kidd fan. I love that he still shows up. But you had 6 people on each team in the women's match. I'm sure you could have found a 6th man to put on the face side. Why not just have Gabe Kidd in the match then?
I guess it created a sense of unfairness from the heels that they had somebody else interfere, and the idea is, get heat on the heels for not living up to their not living up to the stipulation. What was there a spot in the match, any of over the whole night, that you thought they shouldn't have done that?
Not really, like some of the worst bumps were on moves that you could see in a normal match. When Roderick Strong dropped Garcia or dropped Yuta on Garcia with the cutter, and he dropped him straight on Garcia's head, I thought, that's it. He's broken 8 bones in his face. That looked bad. Darby being thrown into the cage and then landing on his head between the ring and the cage, that also scared me.
Mm-hmm. Scared the fans.
It looked really bad. Yeah. But those aren't, you would not look at those spots and call those dangerous spots. You've seen those 100 times. The only thing in any of the matches, I mean, we can leave out the middle match, that's a whole issue in and of itself, was the throwing the mirror spot in the women's match. That's the only thing I can say I probably would have not done.
Yeah. I mean, chair shots to the head, just like, let's stop doing that at all. Just for the principle of it, and as a gesture of acknowledgement of the damage of CT, even if you think it's symbolic or ceremonial and overblown, and some wrestlers will try to make that case. There's other things that hurt worse. Just we kind of agreed not to do it, and let's just abide by that. And it was a bigger deal when there was a bunch of backyard wrestling imitations going on, and you'd get these home videos of kids doing hitting each other with chair shots to the head, and there's not a lot of imitations, at least that I know of right now, of people doing backyard wrestling where you have to worry about that as much. But still, we just don't need it.
It's a good point, and it's not even about what hurts more. Like, I'm sure being dropped from 10 feet up, flat on your back, hurts more than a gimmicked chair to the head. But one of them can cause severe, lasting brain damage, and the other one isn't likely to. So I'll take the extra physical pain, thanks.
Yep. All right, let's pause and introduce ourselves, get that out of the way. And then we will, I want to talk more about Kyle O'Reilly winning. The chat room has some questions. I want to obviously talk about the Hobbs Hangman match, the Steamboat segment with FTR and Stokely, and we'll go more into the women's match too, and try to pull some things out of all the chaos for 2.5+ hours, and let the chat also lead the way in terms of suggesting some topics and reminding us of some things to comment on. This is Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website pwtorch.com, and the host of a bunch of podcasts, including the Wade Keller Post Shows, our Red Logo show on the podcast side of things, and our Blue Logo. Our Blue Logo show is our regular podcast, not the post shows. Yesterday, Sean Radican, by the way, joined me on our Blue Logo show for the weekly flagship. And we talked a lot of AEW, a lot of WWE. It's pretty evergreen. We previewed a little bit of Blind Guts. We talked about Full Gear and big picture topics on AEW, so check that out if you haven't yet. I also asked Sean who his Mount Rushmore of Ring of Honor was, and we walked through the top 4 names and some other candidates and who would sort of be the next tier, who missed the cut and why. So that's in probably the last 15 minutes of the show. So if you are not subscribed to the Blue Logo show or haven't downloaded yesterday's flagship, I encourage you to do so. We don't have Sean on a every 3-week rotation. So when we get him and can schedule it, it's really nice hearing from him. He brings different perspective. I don't think anyone's seen more ROH shows than him, by the way, anywhere in the world. Just search Wade Keller in your podcast app, subscribe to the Blue Logo Show, and of course, while you're at it, subscribe to the Red Logo Show so you don't miss out on anything we're doing. And then search PWTorch in your podcast app and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast. That includes the All Elite Conversation Club with Joel Donnell and Greg Canner. That drops late in the week every week, and you can get a couple other perspectives and voices on what's going on in AEW. That PWTorch Daily Cast has a different show each day of the week, different themes. Wrestling Coast to Coast, covering the indie scene, the 90s Past Cast, our post pay-per-view and PLE show, Wrestling Night in America, the NXT show with the graphic we need to update, and acknowledging WWE with Javier and more. So check that out. And again, all you have to do is search Wade Keller and PWTorch in your podcast app. Most of you know that, but we got new people dropping in, so we like to make sure we explain that. We are live streaming our post shows after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown on YouTube on the PWTorch YouTube channel. So just search PWTorch to find us, and you can join us live for our post shows, and that's what we're doing here. And we have a rotation of co-hosts who are largely contributors to PWTorch. We have some other special guests sometimes from ProWrestling.net, Jake Barnett. But tonight we have PWTorch's Chris Lansdell, who says in his tagline under his name, surprised we saw no actual guts. We did see blood. No guts. I don't know. Guts maybe is not literal. It's like they had the guts to set someone on fire. They had the guts to use a barbed wire baseball bat. Anyway, Chris, welcome. I'm glad you're on this. I don't know if you're glad you're on this week. You said you were a little surprised that you didn't think about the calendar when you booked this date originally.
No, I'm not a huge fan of hardcore wrestling. So I tried to come into this with as an open mind as possible. Yeah. If you had told me, hey, we're going to review a Dynamite with only 3 matches, I'd probably have been pretty stoked. And then I remembered which 3. But no, I think that the show pleasantly surprised me, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about it. And you can join us. We got our live chat. I'll keep an eye on that, throw them up on the screen for our YouTube viewers, and always read them aloud for our audio podcast listeners. We've been doing podcasting a lot longer than YouTube. That's where most of you are, and we appreciate that. And we always make sure to keep you primarily in mind as we do this. You also are invited to send an email, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. They both work. So I just reserve both so that they would just forward to the same account because it's confusing since we're called the Post Show and there's also a podcast. So just either one works. Send them on over if you've got thoughts on the show. We also would like to hear from you as a caller, a video caller or audio caller. The link to that is in my report at PWTorch covering Dynamite. It changes with every show. So there's a special code for Friday SmackDown, for instance. So you have to go to PWTorch, look at my TV report to find that code. That will bring you on to into the waiting room, and we'll bring you onto the show. Adam Kidd is on hold, and we're going to talk to him momentarily here. You don't have to be on camera if you want to be audio only. We did audio only shows for close to 15, about almost 15 years over at Blog Talk Radio before switching to YouTube. So you can be audio only. Just turn your camera off, and you can just be like a caller in the olden days. And yeah, I think that covers everything. We do. I will mention we have a VIP sale going on. I mentioned it on Monday. If you are interested, I don't think we ran I think we ran one other sale this year. I don't even know if it was public. It might have just been a kind of a private sale that we had sent to ex-subscribers. But you can become a VIP member with a $9 discount code. So that'll bring a month down to $3.99. You can apply the $9 discount to a 3-month or 1-year sub too. The rates for that on average are cheaper, so you might want to do that. If you want to come on back and check out the Wade Keller news bulletins that I'm doing in a single-page PDF format, where several times a week, roughly, I'm writing a story that interests me, but also is a top story at that moment, and I provide some analysis and perspective. We also have a news and notes column and the ever-popular endnotes column with just some random thoughts on a variety of eclectic things. I get a little informal in the endnotes, talk about other stuff too a little bit. So that's new. And then I do an audio version of it that takes about 16 minutes. So you can look at it as a PDF. You can on your tablet or on your laptop. We do it in a landscape view, so it fits really nicely. Or you can just read the alt-text version on your phone or computer, or you can listen to me read it as a podcast. So all 3 formats available. It's a new feature we started a few weeks ago. I really wanted to write more. I like this format. It gives me a structure to fill and work within. And so far, we've gotten some really nice feedback on it, too. So that's one reason to go VIP. So go to pwtorch.com/govip, and then click on the link to go to the sign-up form and use coupon code NOV2025. NOV2025, as in November 2025. But it's NOV 2025. That will give you a $9 discount on any VIP subscription. And like I said, we haven't run these sales very often, and maybe only once this year. So take advantage while you can. Check out what VIP is all about. Almost 4 decades of archives, ad-free versions of our website and our free podcasts, VIP exclusive podcasts, that wide array of shows that I'm part of, plus some shows that I'm not part of, all detailed at pwtorch.com/govip. I could go on with the benefits, but we'll just stop there. It's all there on that page. I'd love for you to support us. I mean, obviously, if you enjoy what we do and you're on the free side of things, thank you. I mean, really appreciate that. And I know there's a lot of demands for recurring subscriptions these days with streaming services and such, and subscription services. But we are not a big corporation. We're a small business. We rely on your support to do what we do and put the hours in to make everything work here. So if it's in your budget and you appreciate what we do, then subscribe and we'll give you a lot in return. It's not charity. It's not a tip jar. You get a lot in return for that subscription money. And I appreciate those of you considering that and who are doing it. And we want to create a low barrier to entry for just $3.99 to check us out for a full month. That's full VIP membership. No limitations on the archives or the podcast feed that's compatible with Apple Podcasts and all of that. GWF ESPN said he's been enjoying the new Wade Keller Bulletin hotlines. Appreciate that comment. And yeah, okay. Now let's get back to this. Kyle O'Reilly getting the win is an interesting choice. And by the way, I applaud when someone seems like they're sort of an extra, or the last person you'd expect to win, maybe Roderick Strong would be. It's kind of cool because you didn't necessarily think Mox was going to give up there. Yeah. And he did. Now, maybe it's going to be storyline. Maybe Pac goes, you gave up to Kyle O'Reilly of all people? I could have understood if it was, Darby or Mark Briscoe, whatever story they want to tell poor Kyle O'Reilly if that's a story. But Derek Mitchell in the chat says, what's next for Kyle O'Reilly, the new national champion? Darrell Freeman says, Kyle winning that match made the whole match look dumb and a waste of time. Kyle didn't need a payoff because he's not a guy you're doing or will do anything with. So that payoff won't go anywhere. Chris, why'd they do it?
I'm going to resist the temptation to fortune tell because that is the obvious thought, right? You've never done anything with Kyle O'Reilly, so why would you start now? He's had a lot of stop-start pushes since he left the Indies. But the thing is, he can be that good. And the new national champion, dear God, I hope not. I can see him maybe going after Fletcher again. Maybe he even takes a shot at Hangman. He just made the last world champ tap out, having had 2 previous attempts get ruined by intentional disqualifications. He's got a good case to make for a world title shot. And I mean, Hangman has no obvious challenges right now once he finishes with Joe. Maybe he gets a one-off shot there. I think there is the thought that he's been booked as a joke, so has Roderick Strong. But I don't want to go the route of he who shall not be named and say nobody remembers that, pal. But nobody remembers that. People have very short memories, and the last thing they see is the thing that sticks in their head. Nobody really talks about Daniel Bryan losing the world title in 18 seconds anymore because of everything he did after it. If they follow this up well, Kyle O'Reilly's joke period will be forgotten, and he just shows up now as the badass who tapped out Jon Moxley. He can be taken seriously. It doesn't take a lot of genius storytelling. It's a pretty simple way forward from here. I would love to see him, if not get that world title shot, go after Fletcher again, maybe beat Fletcher. No, you don't want him against Okada. That's a whole different storyline, I think. But there is the potential there for him to actually make something of this push. And I'm hoping, possibly naively, that they actually do something with it this time. Yeah.
Mike Good in the chat says O'Reilly needs to be a serious character if they're thinking of putting a title on him. I mean, you don't need to have a title. I mean, there's plenty of titles go around, so they can. But you don't need to put a title on him as the only way to justify why they did this finish. It could have just been they wanted to surprise people. It could have been in reaction. People going, what are O'Reilly and Strong doing in the match? But it could be Pac and Claudio just going, Mox gave up to Kyle O'Reilly. And, poor Kyle, if that's storyline. But, I get it. So, yeah.
I think you can tell the Death Rider storyline without making it seem like it was Kyle O'Reilly that caused the problem. You just say you tapped out, period.
No question about that. Yeah.
And I don't think O'Reilly needs to win a title for them to make this push mean something. But I definitely think he needs a high-profile title shot as a result of this, because in storyline terms, he just tapped out a former world champion. That's a big deal. He almost did it twice more. That's a big deal. It should mean something.
Sadler version 3 says, if he's tapping out one of their 3 biggest stars in a headline match, he's got to be pushed, maybe to the TNT level versus Fletcher. And by the way, I am a fan of Kyle O'Reilly's work. I mean, honestly, he's one of the really top-level ROH indie guys, and I mean, he is top shelf. And for his type of wrestler, which is a style I really like to watch. Ilya Dragunov, and just he's a guy who just goes. He looks credible in what he does. But personality-wise, he just kind of lost his way a little bit. It was, he got the push where he did the weird dance in NXT when he was kind of the new central lead guy, and it just kind of petered out. And he's just been an ensemble guy in AEW, just kind of sort of a legacy upper mid-card indie ROH guy. He just hasn't been framed as serious, and he's kind of been a goof at times, comedy-wise, just with the conglomeration. So it's a curious decision. It might not mean a lot. It was a lot of chaos, and it was just a gesture to him. But if they want to push him, sure, let this be the start. They can tell the story arc, like you said, Chris. I mean, you shouldn't be that. You don't have to be super clever about it. He's on a hot streak. He just beat Moxley. It's a boost of confidence. Now people are coming after him. So, all right, we can talk more about the men's match as we go, and we can talk about. But I want to have time to talk about other stuff. But I also want to bring Adam Kidd on before it gets too late. So let's go to our first caller. From there, we'll go to Steamboat, the women's match, and the Hangman Hobbs match. Adam, welcome. Good to talk to you again. Thanks for calling.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good. I mean, it's an adrenaline rush of a show for sure.
It's definitely a show. I agree with Chris. Some of what Chris was saying earlier. I think they showed a lot of restraint, and there wasn't the big dumb spots but it was a microcosm of a few things. Not everybody should blade, because that Sky Blue blade job and the Kyle O'Reilly blade job were both really bad. They lost a lot of blood. And to me, for my taste, it doesn't add a ton to the match. I don't need so much blood in any of my matches. I get that kind of match. We're going to see both ends of the spectrum. We're going to see the far end of overly safe when WWE does it at Survivor Series. I think the right spot's somewhere in the middle. But I don't want to see that. I mean, it reminded me when Eddie had blood so much when he was facing JBL. When he lost the title. Yeah. I thought the worst bump of the night was Hobbs, the backdrop off of the announce table where he landed on his tailbone. I don't know if they didn't have enough space or what happened there, but that did not look good at all. Back to Chris's point of that you just have a normal move that can be just as bad or dangerous. That was a nasty looking.
I don't know if I'd call a backdrop off a table during a chaotic false count. It's a normal, but I know what you mean by it. It was meant to be. It was meant to seem controlled. Although even Hobbs just stepping out of the announce desk and his leg slipping in a hole meant for the cables. Crowd gasped at that, and it was like, gee, things can go wrong. Something can kind of freaky happen. I mean, he did get up and continue on. But when the women in their match were trying to do spots through a table, but they didn't do it with the table perpendicular. They did it with the table sticking straight out table, it's physics. It's not going to break as easily if you do that. There's a reason you almost never, maybe never, see a spot done where people land on the table the long way. It's always perpendicular. And so it didn't break twice. I mean, it kind of cracked it the second time, but you want the table to break. You're expecting it to break. So that was a spot. I wasn't keeping track because I'm typing up my written report on PWTorch. I didn't keep track of my favorite or least favorite or most dangerous spots, but normally on a show you can just recall them. Like this,
Right.
this was, 2 matches lasting, nearly an hour. It's hard to remember everything, but yeah. Chris,
I thought that from a spot standpoint, it was tame.
yeah, you know what the most dangerous spot was that worried me is Mark Briscoe leaping off the top of the cage, and thank God he didn't. I thought he was going to do that, and I'm like, they don't like teasing spots they're not going to do, but I actually thought I was relieved that he did not leap off the top of the cage. So in my mind, I was imagining, okay, this could be really bad, and we don't need it. And thankfully, they didn't do that. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. You want anything to that?
No, I mean, I see where you're coming from on it. There was just a lot of unnecessary stuff, right? Like it's the blading. It's tricky because we've seen some people who are extremely experienced at it still catch the wrong spot, and it's just a question of a little bit too much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just trying to think then of the worst injuries we've seen in the ring and how many of them were on moves that are just ill-advised. And I mean, Droz was on a very normal move. Pedro Aguayo Jr. was on a 619, getting into position for that. I'm trying to think. There was Ridge Holland and Big E. That wasn't an unnecessary move. I mean, it was on the floor, but we've seen that a dozen times. It's not normally the really dangerous spots that have led to these really nasty outcomes, and I think we saw that tonight. It wasn't the glass or the flaming tables that were the scariest parts.
It probably per capita, the dangerous spots do more damage, but the routine spots are done so much, the odds of something going wrong with them just because they're done so often is higher. So I'd throw that out there as a possible as a possible reason that we see less of it. Yeah. Oh, anyway, Adam, back to you.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Kyle being the person that got Mox to tap out. It's nothing against Kyle. It's just the way he's been framed. I actually have a lot of respect for him for coming back from the neck injury that he had. You can tell he had some atrophy in the one arm from having the neck issue. I mean, my hat's off to the guy. He's a warrior to come back and do that, and he does good work. He's just not been framed. But I'll sit back and say, let's see where it goes. I was really surprised that you didn't get a tease of any dissension with the Death Riders at the end of the match. I don't think you needed to have the breakup happen tonight, but I would have liked to have seen, if that's where it's going, some seeds planted, but there was nothing.
So how do you feel about that, Chris, that they could have done an angle? I have mixed feelings on, because I get where Adam's coming from, and I was kind of thinking, they don't go off the air right away. I haven't checked social media. Maybe they did an angle afterwards, and it's going to be circulated on social media where there was a big blow up. So if the chat wants to check on that for us while we're doing the show, you can, because sometimes that's happened in WWE. They were kind of doing that for a while earlier this year too. Something off the air to get social media buzz. But I'm okay with more of a slow burn. I'm okay with. I mean, they don't have a lot of time to book a match, but there's a Collision Saturday, I think. So then either that or Dynamite next week, you can just set up the match, and you could go pretty quickly. And I've pitched this, or I don't know, pitch is a word because that means I'm advocating for it, but I've thrown it out there as a possibility, which is Darby and Mox against Claudio and Pac right away, and just throw it on Full Gear, fast forward the angle. Maybe that's too fast. Maybe this card doesn't need it, but maybe it does. So yeah,
I don't want to get there that quickly.
Yep.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because when Roderick Strong came out, I half expected him to turn, because he's had a bit of the tension with the conglomeration, not really wanting to be around them. He only really wants to be around Kyle O'Reilly, and I thought maybe there was going to be something going on there. We didn't get it, obviously, but I think if you're going to do the tension angle with the way that Mox has led that faction, and with the way that until now there hasn't even been a hint of dissension or hesitation in following what he says, you can't just switch it off automatically. I would have liked to see some sort of sideways glances, some sort of shocked looks on the face of his team, or at least plant some seeds, and then we take it from there. But I think if we have that match, is it Full Gear next, or is it?
Full Gear is a week from Saturday.
I hope.
No, it would be rushed. But if you look at it's rushed, but at least there'd be an excuse, which is we want to do it blood and guts, and We don't want to rush the angle right after the match ends because we're running long and we want to have a big angle for Dynamite. It would be a fast turnaround. There's a downside to it, but at least it wouldn't be arbitrarily rushed. It would be because Blood and Guts happened a week and a half before the pay-per-view, and that's when we're really gonna do that. By the way, Zach Barber just showed up. He was running late. He goes, "Evening all, just finished the show. Holy crap, what a main event." Zach, all we've been doing is ripping on it the whole time. What a terrible show.
Oh no.
Not enough violence.
No. Oh no. He's gonna light up worse than the table. What are you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, I wish I had more jokes to play it straight, but
I say it every week. Zach's gonna Zach.
Yes. A comment up from Sadler on the possible turn or breakup. The Death Riders turning on Mox kills the group, in my opinion, since they don't have a legit main eventer to take reins of the group. If they had that guy, I'd be all for it. No, I'm actually okay with Pac being in that spot. I think Pac, not everyone's up with the current hairstyle and all that, but he carries himself like an alpha badass. And he did, on Collision last Saturday, the way he confronted or kind of just gave a death stare to Don Callis while Callis is pitching work with us. Like, there is a tightly wound badass credibility to Pac, and he can talk. And I'm not against, especially when you look at AEW's roster, I'm not against trying to elevate him into something more relevant and see if he can shine in that role. Chris, what do you think?
First thing I'd need to make sure is that he's got his work visa situation sorted out.
That's fair. Yeah, of course.
You can't elevate him and then have him have to leave for 6 months.
Yeah.
I like Pac as the silent muscle, but Claudio plays that role way better. My choice would be Gabe Kidd, but my choice is always Gabe Kidd, and he does still have his New Japan commitments. But it's a valid comment. Like, yeah, Pac could do it, but I think you need to set it up because he hasn't really taken that sort of second in command role that I would have liked to see him take if he was about to step up and take over the faction if they kick Moxley out. The person who's been doing a lot of talking really is Wheeler Yuta, and there's no way he's ready. As much as I love the kid, you get the faction booed into high heaven, but I'd almost say
he's not a leader on the microphone. He's not a leader. And the thing with Pac is he's been gone enough. He hasn't had a chance to be defined down or burned out. It's been start and stop, but he's kind of, there's a freshness to him. I don't know. So what do you think, Adam? I can see an expression on your face. It makes me curious.
I'm not a fan of Yuta. I know you guys like him. He has go away heat with me. I just don't like him.
Why?
But Pac, I like Pac.
Okay.
A lot. I liked him. I thought he did a great job in NXT when he was the champion there. I think they ruined him on the main roster when he went to the main roster in WWE of pigeonholing him as a cruiserweight. I think, and he looks like he's even gotten stockier. Like he looked good tonight. I don't know what supplements that guy's on, but they're working. I think that he can play the unhinged, like he would be believable as the linchpin of turning on Moxley and taking over that group.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that would be a good place to go. I think he's credible, but I agree with Chris. He can't disappear for 3, 4, 5 months because he doesn't have his work visa taken care of. It just he's hurting the company at that point.
Absolutely, makes sense. And Adam, anything else you want to bring up?
No, that was about it. I do wish they would have just not done the Ricky Steamboat.
You did it.
I know. Sorry.
No, it's never apologize. I just think it's funny. It's human. Yeah.
For people,
I'm sorry. Adam, pause for what's that, Chris?
I've done it. I did it when I used to call in too.
So for people catch them up, it was a bit that we've been doing for not a bit. It's something I point out for years where I say anything else to a caller and they go, nope, that's it. And then they go on and bring up a new point. It's a stall It's like a stall tactic or a tick to do
I'm new to this. I don't have a lot of experience. I'll get better.
Even people, you do not have to. I want to be very clear here. You do not have to apologize. It's just funny, but it's not
right.
Experienced callers do it. People who called every week for years did it. It's just funny. Like you can just count on it. You just count on it. Anything else? Nope, that's it. But I do want to say blah blah blah, and then it's funny. So anyway, go ahead.
I didn't like the FTR Ricky Steamboat angle. I just thought it was clunky. It didn't come off well. I actually was worried that Ricky was really something wrong with him at the end. He didn't look good after taking the bump. He was clunky on the mic. Not that he was ever a great promo.
Yeah. That's vintage Rick Steamboat right there.
But I mean, on a show that you already have going for 2.5 hours, I understand you want the nostalgia pop for being in North Carolina, but that was just bad. And we ended up getting an overrun that we didn't need either. I mean, that segment, I wouldn't have done it at all, but it probably dragged on about 3 to 5 minutes longer than it needed to. And I thought it kind of really hurt the flow of that middle part of the show.
A couple comments in the chat here. Zach Barber says, I love Ricky Steamboat, but that segment dragged way too long. Come on, Zach, quit being so negative. And Sadler goes, I actually didn't mind it because I like Dax on the mic. Pickens CJ says, Steamboat was a chance for the fans to go to the restroom and pick up another beer or soda. I don't think the intention was, let's pad this show with Ricky Steamboat talking for 10 minutes or so people can run to the bathroom. I actually found myself liking this, I think, more than the sentiment here. But it also crossed my mind when I was watching it going, how many people are there left in the demographic? I mean, obviously a lot, but it's a smaller percentage every year who experienced Ricky Steamboat, and he hasn't been celebrated by the number one company, WWE, the way others have. And he doesn't instantly jump off the screen as this charismatic guy. Spoiler alert, he never was, promo wise. But he was great in the ring. Arguably Ric Flair's greatest opponent. When I talk about Ric Flair's greatest opponents, it's so weird. I don't always pick him because I often pick Barry Windham is my favorite, even though it wasn't as big of I don't mean for in the history of the course of the industry. It's my favorite matches to watch because I saw Flair and Windham at his peak front row at NWA Crockett shows. And then, there's Sting. I mean, whatever. There's all kinds of great people on the list, but Steamboat probably, objectively speaking, was Flair's greatest opponent and most influential in terms of they wrestled each other to fame. They were one of the earliest tape trading gems before the Japan tapes really kicked in. So he's a legend in Greensboro, but I don't know how many people attending a Blood and Guts show in Greensboro in 2025 have that history with him where they are going to hang on his every word when he isn't, super charismatic. And it was a little self-indulgent in the sense that Dax and Cash, they're a big team in AEW, but I don't know if the history of Dax and Steamboat, it needed as much time as it got. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to talk myself into not liking the segment, and I'm acknowledging I thought, boy, it's going long, and I don't know how many people care. But I did kind of enjoy it because Dax and Cash were really good here. Stokely was good. And I did like Steamboat looked good for 72 going on 73. He's been through a lot, and maybe I had low expectations going in, and that helped because I thought Steamboat rose to the occasion and was pretty good for Rick Steamboat here. So I don't know. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts. Chris, how about you?
So I spent the majority of that segment saying, please don't bring Flair out. Please don't bring Flair out. And when the segment ended and they didn't bring Flair out, I was just too relieved to notice it had gone on that long. Yep. I was about to correct you and say that Steamboat recently had a match in WWE, but no, that was 16 years ago. I'm old. Oh my God, I'm old. Yep. But there'll be more people who will remember that match than will remember his glory days, of course. And that match, well, those two matches actually, it was phenomenal for somebody his age to be able to go out there and do that. I mean, at that point, you had a prime Jericho who was able to bump like crazy for him. But yeah, yes, Steamboat in Greensboro is an icon. But you had Lou Thesz's wife sitting in the crowd. You could have done the same thing with Steamboat. I'm glad they didn't put him on commentary like they did last time in Greensboro. But give him a hammer and let him sit next to the bell, and let's move on with our lives.
You guys are mean to Rick Steamboat. There is something about Tony Khan. There is a time capsule Tony Khan lives in. He's never going to escape from, and it is the wrestling Tony Khan enjoyed as a teenager and a 20-something. RSPW. He wrote letters to Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter that got published. He was a Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter reader. And there's that hardcore fan growing up, and anyone who meant a lot to him or a title, such as, I don't know, the national championship out of Georgia. I mean, he's going to put it out there because it has worked really well for Tony Khan to book a product that is for 15-year-old and 25-year-old and 30-year-old Tony Khan. I mean, that is what he does. He books what he thinks the dream promotion would be for Tony Khan at various ages. And I don't think we get anything else. Like, I don't think there's anything he begrudgingly puts on the air because it's better for business. I think he books entirely for himself. Now, he may disagree and make points. I don't know if you've ever been asked that. But you know what? It's actually...
He wouldn't answer anyway.
Well, he might, yeah. He might go off on promoting how great
that's a great question, Wade, and thank you for asking it. And then I just want you to mention how great it is to be here in this beautiful city of Greensboro, North Carolina, with all of our wonderful fans. So many fans in the building for AEW Dynamite tonight. Of course, we're going to be back here again for Collision in a little while. And we're just putting such great shows on with all of the great work of our talent, like Ricky Steamboat, being able to acknowledge that history in pro wrestling in Greensboro. So I'm really glad you asked that question. And of course, I know that we're going to have to continue to honor our history at Full Gear, which is coming up. So yeah, great question, and thank you for asking it.
All right.
That was perfect.
Yep. So Tony Khan books for himself, and it has worked for him. It won't always work for him, and occasionally it just doesn't work. I think 14-year-old Tony Khan would love to have booked Ricky Steamboat in a 10-15 minute segment as padding to give everyone a deep breath from a blood and guts, pair of blood and guts brawls bookending the show. But yeah, I mean, it was longer than it ought to have been, but it exceeded my expectations. And by the way, I thought Stokely and Cash and Dax were good. It wasn't just Steamboat being put out there to cut a solo promo. He was good. Stoke was a star. Says Gilbert. Gilberto. Gilbert Arbalo, I guess, is where there'd be a space if it wasn't an @ name. And there's another thing I was going to put up here. ESPN, GAWF ESPN says they should have a show with Steamboat, Luthez, wife, Antonio Inoki's family, and Martha Hart to try to scare away the entire 18 to 34 demo at once. It's tough when you don't have the footage. They've got rights to a lot of footage, but there's not much with Steamboat. They could have pulled some Steamboat in ROH footage out when he did some stuff with them, but I don't know. With having that treasure trove of ROH library, Tony Khan sure doesn't utilize it. It's kind of crazy how has rights to it doesn't do much of anything with it.
I have to wonder if that's a video quality issue. Going back and looking at some of those old Ring of Honor DVDs, they look like they were shot on a Polaroid in the dark. So I don't know if he wants to put that on 4K television.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean that was an issue back then with them. GWF ESPN says, when Ricky looked confused and was like, I'm going to tell you a quick story, I let my dog out.
Me too, and I don't have a
dog. All right. Anything else? I'm glad we went.
It's Roscoe. Say hi again, Roscoe.
Hey, buddy.
No, that's all I had. Everybody go VIP. I appreciate your guys' coverage all the time. Chris, I always like when you're on the show. I like you're fair and impartial. Yeah, he's always fair. I might not always agree with him, but I agree where he's coming from, even when I don't agree.
Thank you.
So, and Wade, you're the best. And keep giving Zach a hard time every week. It makes my heart happy. So
awesome. You keep him in check in the chat too. Appreciate it.
I will.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for calling.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep, you too. All right, cool. If you want to call the show, feel free. The link is in my report at PWTorch. Jump on in. Okay, so we talked about? I'm going to wrap up the Steamboat conversation with a pointed question, which is, what was the point? And I would say the point was, Brodito got to be heroes, saving Steamboat from a pile driver, and it promoted the tag match. FTR got to be heels. I think it meant, I don't think you should do things because they mean a lot to the wrestlers involved. I mean, that's a bonus, but that shouldn't be the sole reason you do anything. But I think that meant the world to Dax and perhaps Steamboat too, to be able to do an angle. Steamboat might go, I barely remember you. I trained dozens, hundreds of guys. Were you bald back then, Dax? And Dax has to I mean, I don't know. Maybe it means more to Dax than it does Steamboat. I am totally just not guessing, but just whatever, speculating that there's a range of possibilities here how special it was for Rick. But it seemed like there was real history there to pull from, and I mean that aspect was cool. But in the end, it did serve a purpose, which is Brodito going, "You're not going to attack this legend. We respect him," and they made the save. And Stokely and FTR were jerks, and heels should be jerks to people who seem like nice guys to help get them heat. So it wasn't a pointless segment. The key is, as Zach Barber says, agreed, Wade, but they still could have done it in 5 or 6 fewer minutes, and that is the point. I mean, I think it was pre-recorded. They probably would have spliced it down a bit. Chris edited it a few spots.
It wasn't a pointless segment, but it didn't need to be on the show. So that segment and the match before it, or was the match after it? I can't remember. Irrelevant. Neither one should have been on the show. They should have done either. They should have had a Brodito tag squash and then an FTR tag squash, or they could have given like a jet speed match or something. And you still could have done the angle with Steamboat after FTR had a match and got the exact same result without making us sit through that painful, slow talking that really didn't serve any purpose except for to set up what we all knew was going to happen.
Yeah, you're still being harder on it than I think it deserves, but fair enough. I mean, I don't think you're crazy saying it. I just personally enjoyed it more. I say that, and then I think the caveat. But I thought it ran long and should have been shorter too. So I'm not disagreeing with you. It was, even with all its faults, I still enjoyed it more. Okay, so let's just work to the Powerhouse Hobbs Hangman Page match. What purpose did that serve? Okay, you get Hangman in a non-title match. He's a fighting champion, even though the title wasn't on the line. It's one of Samoa Joe's guys in the ops. They said the point for Hobbs isn't to win; it's just to soften up Hangman. He wants to win, but if he doesn't, it still has a purpose. Softening up Hangman a week and a half before the pay-per-view, and then we got the angle afterwards with the heel. The heels get extra heat for attacking him. So, you absolutely could have said it's Blood and Guts night with a special appearance by Ricky Steamboat and left it there and shortened the show. But having a babyface champion get beat down to create some doubt that maybe he won't be able to Samoa Joe will be fresher. You created more doubt about the title match. There's value there. And it was an angle to set up a cage match. And Hangman said, yeah, let's make it a cage match. And Joe sold that well as like, that's not what I wanted. So yeah, what do you think?
I hated this. I didn't so much dislike the fact that they had the match. You have a Blood and Guts match followed by a Blood and Guts match. Why is the break match no falls count anyway?
That is a good point. Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yep.
And you could have done the angle. You could have done the try to hurt him without going all through the arena. A multitude of times, Will Hobbs decided to tell us that he told us. And we know, but at least he wasn't snarling after a body slam this time.
Yeah.
It's just, and then you bring the heels out so that it's 4-on-1 at that point, and then you have Kingston and Hook come out for the save, or 3-on-1. Fine, sure. Why was the cage lowered? Why are the arena workers listening to Samoa Joe to lower the cage? So now, effectively, the match that was supposed to be the sandwich and the refresher between the two Blood and Guts matches has part of it taking place inside the cage. It just, there's no logic there. Like, make it make sense. This might not seem like a big thing to some people because they are viewing each thing individually. But the entire point of not doing those two matches back to back is to give you a breather, to give you something different. Mm-hmm. That wasn't different. It felt exactly the same as what came before it and what came after it. And you don't give fans a chance to breathe. It desensitizes you to everything you've just seen. You could have done a women's match there. You could have done a couple of tag squashes. You could have bring the Outrunners out and do something fun. Just anything to change the mood would have been much better there. But the match just, I get it. You want to set up the cage match, which, yeah, let's do a world title cage match 2 weeks after we do 2 blood and guts matches. That's genius. I get that that's what you want to do, and I get you want to incapacitate Hobbs before that, but it's just too much. It's too much at once.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. And you mentioned a possible jet speed match. Just something that's just action and it's an opportunity because you have a big viewership to feature somebody else who doesn't get a lot of TV time and give them just a showcase match. And they didn't do that. I mean, they're trying to promote a pay-per-view. They wanted, with a big audience in between Blood and Guts, to have Hangman be the centerpiece and set up the cage match. I mean, I get the rationale for it, but yeah, having it be Falls Count Anywhere just felt like, I mean, it's already overkill by definition of 2 Blood and Guts matches. By the way, did it work having 2 Blood and Guts matches? That's the thing. You got women's Royal Rumbles. You got, it's the idea of, Survivor Series matches or War Games matches. Like, it's everybody kind of each gender gets their own match on the same show. Others have advocated go every other year, put them on different events. How do you feel?
I don't mind having 2 matches if there's a reason for it. The women should have main evented, plain and simple. They actually had a reason for the Blood and Guts match. The men's match felt totally thrown together with 2.5 main event names out of 10 in the show, in the match. It should have gone on first. The women deserved that spotlight. There were a lot of women in that match. Like Toni Storm, Mercedes Moné, 2 of the biggest draws in the company. They've been doing great work recently. They got just sort of shunted to the opening match. When we get to that, I have a whole bunch to say about that match. I don't have a what's the word I'm looking for? A theoretical issue with doing 2 matches on the same night. I just don't think. Thank you.
Yeah. I
just don't think this was the night to do it, and I don't think these were the wrestlers to do it within the men's match. It didn't work for me.
Yeah. Very good. Well, let's talk about this women's match that you have so much to say about. I will throw to you and let you lead the discussion here on that.
Oh boy, I really, really wanted to like this match. The Willow Nightingale has shown time and again that she is very good in this type of match. We've seen Sky Blue and Julia do a lot of these matches as well, to varying degrees of success. This bugged the living daylights out of me. You didn't need 6 on each team at all.
Yeah.
Early on in the match, I think bringing Sky and Julia out first for the heels was a bad idea because a lot of their feeding into the early weapon shots, especially from Jamie Hayter, just looked bad. It was slow. It was trainee level of obvious feeding and cooperation that just really took me out of the flow of the match. Jamie Hayter coming in with the bag of thumbtacks and then swinging it for some reason and spilling it all over the ring definitely meant that they had to improvise at least 5 minutes of that match, because I can guarantee you there were spots planned with that. The match, there were really good spots in this match. There were some really innovative ideas. I enjoyed a lot of what Marina Shafir did. I mean, they brought her out last. I thought it was funny that Bryan Danielson said, "Why is she coming out last?" Because nobody trusts her to be in the ring any longer than that. But yeah. I had to laugh when she came through the crowd in socks and shoes and then took them off to get in the ring that's full of broken glass and thumbtacks. I mean, that's, but the spot where
glass.
She ground, yeah,
quote unquote, okay. Yeah, air quote glass,
yeah, sugar. But the spot where she ground her barefoot into the glass and then stomped, I thought that was very innovative. I've never seen that done before. There was something else I got. The mirror spot bugged me because it looked too telegraphed. But my biggest issue with this match, the world champion is Kris Statlander. She got a great pop when she came out. She cleaned house, and the crowd. I've used this point before. There was a point where Steve Austin was backstage with He Who Shall Not Be Named. Steve Blackman came out, got a great pop at his entrance, and Steve said, "Man, listen to that pop." And then Vince said, "Yeah, now let's hope he can get over." Getting a pop for your entrance is not the same as getting over. Statlander got a good pop. She came in, she cleaned house, and the pop was sustained. So it worked. She got the reaction that you want for your champion. So why, at the end, is the finish focusing on Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa when you could have done the exact thing with Statlander and Willow, especially because they teased the reunion earlier in the match. You go with that reunion, you have them hug, you have them make up, and then you hold Statlander in place while Willow is being beaten down. You have Shirakawa and Tony thrown out of the ring, and you get the exact same effect, but you keep the focus on the number one woman in your promotion right now. She's the champion. She's got a match against Monet. You could have avoided putting the focus back on Tony, who you're trying to de-emphasize for a little while. But instead, you go back to the same old thing with her. And Chris Statlander's on the outside, not even factoring in the decision. That really annoyed me because Statlander is on the verge of breaking through. She still doesn't have a good character, but the crowd is getting behind her. You have a great opportunity to show some humanity and to get the people behind her because she cares about her friend. And you give it back to Tony, who doesn't need the help.
Yeah. So do you think it was done just to avoid having one of the top stars that you think should have been involved in the finish actually have to give up? Because this was an escape hatch finish that had enough, like, there's almost, setting aside the framing your criticism, I just want to say, if you're going to have somebody give up on behalf of somebody else, Tony Storm, who's just crazy, giving up on behalf of this dear friend, and Tony Storm seems like the type of person who would do that. Like, I think it fits her character and it fits the relationship he has with Shirakawa. So it wasn't an out of nowhere cop out finish. It fits their personalities. And I don't think they wanted Mercedes or Statlander to give up to one another. You could do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm saying in their mind, they're like, let's save that. So we can have Mercedes and Stat go at each other, but we don't need them to be involved in the finish. And frankly, they could have, and we saw it with O'Reilly getting the win. Maybe they're trying to book against expectations a little bit and just go, hey, people aren't going to expect this. Let's do this.
So what I'm thinking now is they actually could have reversed it and had Willow being the one held while Megan Bain and somebody else beat down Statlander, and then have Willow give up on behalf of Statlander, which actually might work out better. I didn't like the fact that the champion and the number one contender, for that matter, were both nowhere to be seen for the finish of this huge match. Statlander is about to get over, and I will die on that hill. When I was on the show the week after she won the title, we mentioned how her entire demeanor had changed and she was carrying herself like a champion. And then she ruined it for a couple of weeks. But now it doesn't matter what a few of us think. She's getting a reaction. She got a reaction from the crowd, and the crowd stayed behind her after the entrance music was over. That is getting over. And you need to build on that. And you build on that by putting her in positions that make the crowd care about her. And they had the chance to do that and didn't.
So a couple chat comments here. Darrell Freeman says, Chris, you answer your own question. Statlander is not over. She got a pop, but she doesn't bring out emotions and feelings from the crowd. Tony Storm came out last and had the biggest pop, and the crowd was in her hands. Zach Barber adds, Tony and Mina will be fighting Bain and Shafir in the semifinals, so it set up an opportunity for payback. Chris, your thoughts on both of those?
Okay. So, yeah, Tony is the biggest pop. And yes, the crowd is in her hand. That's actually part of my point. She doesn't need the help. She didn't need that finish to get her anywhere. She could have been in a corner doing her nails and she would not be any less over. Statlander is not over yet, but she's getting there and she needed this help. Yes, Tony and Mina will be fighting in the semifinals. The Women's World Championship is and always should be more important. And you should not, in a match like this, have the last image be a tag team over the world champion. You can tell that story during the match, 100%. But now, Statlander, if you showed somebody that match and you took the belt off Statlander, which he came out and said, who's the most important woman in this match? Not many people are getting Statlander as the answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, is that answering your own question? Or are you saying, no, you got to use this opportunity to make up for that?
Exactly. You had the chance. The crowd was ready. They were there waiting for her to do something big, and they didn't let her.
Another comment here in response to you. Ducky D says, I really like that idea, but I like what they did better. Statlander and Willow aren't friends like Storm and Shirakawa. And at this point, they still need to tell that story, and I think they have more planned with those two. Durrell says, nobody cared that Stat and Monet took each other out with that table spot. The crowd cared more about Tony and Mina. And Mike Good says, Willow with the belt would be so much better than Stat. Well, that's a whole other topic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sold on Stat being on the verge of being over or the right choice. But I, you want to create your own stars within your own ecosystem, and they might have felt they had some people over, enough people were. They have their star power established with Monet and Storm, and Statlander's been just sort of an experiment worth following up on and trying to go all in with and see if it can click. This might be their last gasp trying to do that for a while if it doesn't work. But I'm not ruling out it does, but her promos are still awkward. I mean, everything, even the whatever stairwell sitting down promo on Collision, it just felt like, why did you pick a camera angle where Statlander is going to turn her head and talk to the camera at an angle nobody would choose to do voluntarily? Everything is just so awkward and difficult with her. But there's other traits they like. They just haven't found that lane for her. But I'll still defend this, what they did. But I get what you're saying. This is a chance to have a chance for Statlander to just get a win. She could have beat almost anybody in that match and be the person who did it. Again, I don't want to get too micro booking, but you could have had Monet and Statlander both about to submit one of their opponents, and they were kind of competing to see who could make the other tap first. And they're looking at each other, staring each other down, applying a submission, or beating on the opponent, whatever. And then there's sort of parallel worlds going on, and Statlander just does it first. Then you're not submitting one of the big stars, but they still are in a spot where they're competing with each other, and you still have Statlander in the end winning. And you still could have established something with Tony and Mina in a different way that would accomplish what Zach is pointing out they're trying to accomplish, which is build a backstory for the Take semifinals. So I throw that out there illustratively. It's not like, oh, I think that's a great idea, they should have done it. I'm just saying there are ways to accomplish what they might have been trying to avoid. They might have been able to accomplish what you're saying, Chris, while also avoiding what I think they're trying to avoid.
The ending that they went with was not a bad ending. The ending worked. I just think they lost a really good opportunity to actually get behind the person they've chosen as their champion. Mm-hmm. I like Statlander more than most. I'm not blind to her faults at all. I do think she still sounds awkward. But I heard the reaction when she came out, and I heard that reaction get sustained while she was in the ring. And that's something that she hasn't been enjoying. Mm-hmm. She hasn't had that at all when she was a champion, not since she was doing the coming out and doing the sign language bit, which is the time I think the crowd was most behind it. So when you have that opportunity and you don't take it, you're almost sabotaging yourself with your choice of champion, because you're not giving her the support that she unfortunately needs. She can't do what Toni Storm can do and just run with it herself.
Yeah. All right, let's go to JB from Detroit's email, and we'll march through some topics, beginning with the topic we're talking about here. Mina wasn't originally scheduled for the women's blood and guts match. She was a replacement for a legit Queen Amanada injury. Yeah. Knowing this, what was the original plan to end the women's blood and guts match, as the story ended up being Tony and Mina's close relationship? I don't have confidence that Tony Khan felt he needed to work out the finish when he came up with a match. Chris?
That's a good point. I would not be surprised if they didn't have a finish planned yet.
Yep.
And I had completely forgotten that Mina was a late addition. Maybe she was going to be added anyway. Maybe they were going to do a storyline injury angle with Amanada. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know if they had a plan yet. Maybe the plan is what we're talking about here with Stat and Willow. I will give myself that solace and say that was the plan and feel better about it for a little bit.
Yeah. Adam Kidd said, I like the finish of the women's match much better than the men's. Just throw that in there. All right.
Hang on. I like the actual finish, but the build to the finish in the men's match was my favorite thing of the whole night. Because for a long time, I thought, wow, they're really going to have both heel teams win. It looked that way. And then O'Reilly and Roderick Strong just went Super Saiyan mode and just beat the living daylights out of everyone. Tried to break a bunch of tables and looked like world beaters, and it came out of nowhere with a burst of not just skill but energy. Like, they found energy despite having been out there so long, and I really enjoyed that part more than anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll go back to JB's email. While I read it, I'll just throw up our VIP sale banner here just for people who want to reference it on the YouTube page graphically. pwtorch.com/govip. If you enter coupon code NOV2025, it'll take $9 off at checkout a VIP subscription that unlocks decades of archives, ad-free versions of our free podcasts, VIP exclusive podcasts that are compatible with Apple Podcasts with a single click, no advanced settings, nothing complicated, no passwords to enter, or many other iOS and Android apps. You can also stream directly from our ad-free VIP exclusive website, and that includes the new Wade Keller news bulletins in PDF, all text, and podcast format several times a week on average. Check it out. NOV2025 is the coupon code. pwtorch.com/govip is the website to go visit, and then just click on the link that'll take you to the sign-up page from there after you peruse the benefits. Back to JB. He goes, my favorite spot from the women's Blood and Guts match was when Toni Storm came out as the Pearl Clutcher. It just goes to show that not all of the most memorable spots are from pure athleticism or violence. Yes, I think they were cheap beads, probably not authentic pearls, but nevertheless, just speculation. Wild. I'm still cynical. But that said, yeah, she was clutching pearls as her weapon of choice. By the way, pool cues, I know they get used in bar fights, but that doesn't mean that if you have a choice of all weapons in the world, you should choose a pool cue. They're not the weight distribution is awkward unless you really know how to use them, because you've used a bow in a martial art or something. It's not a good weapon. I would not choose that. I'd say the barbed wire aluminum bat was a better choice. If you have choice of a weapon to bring to the ring, go with a bat with barbed wire, not a pool cue. But for Toni, Clutch and Pearls plays into her persona. That was clever. Any thoughts on that, Chris? Too cute for a match of this type?
No, I don't think so, because it's Toni. Also, the fact that you didn't know she was wearing the Joker makeup until the lights came on because of the black and white effect, I thought was pretty fun. The only thing I would have liked to see is have Toni make a bit more of an obvious allusion to Sarah Stark in some way. Maybe have her come out dressed as a Dark Angel. I would have laughed a lot if she had managed to pull that off somehow.
Yeah. All right, I think my favorite match tonight was a Hangman Hobbs Last Man Standing match. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing overall. I mean, there were only 3 matches, and if you're not digging the length and the violence and the format, then by default it could be your favorite match. It wasn't a bad Last Man Standing match. I mean, it might have been a nice match to save as a main event of a Collision to draw off some extra viewers instead of wedging it into this show, which was, had so much violence on it. They could have, they could have done an angle and a promo on the show to set this up and point people to Collision on Saturday night and headlined with that, and it would have had its own breathing space to really land. Smaller audience, but then you just recap it Wednesday and you get everything out of it. Why did Shibata and Joe get to decide when the cages are lowered? I mean, I guess the implication is there's some intimidation with Joe, and somebody doesn't want to be, get in trouble with Joe. I get that. It's not like the Bucks. Well, I was gonna say it's not like the Bucks, but the Bucks had EVP leverage for a long time. So yeah, I have gripes about things that don't make sense. I can conjure up. Joe just goes, "You better lower that cage, or else," and someone's going to be scared. Okay, JB. Despite my previous point, I thought that tonight was the best build for the Hangman Samoa Joe feud so far. The hatred and vitriol felt real in Hangman's promo, and in this specific case, I felt that the yelling was justified. The steel cage stipulation makes sense, and it was smart to use the blood and guts to get there. The downside of the cage match is it doesn't feel very novel when we just got almost 2 hours of it tonight. Yeah. So that's not good. It does feel like, okay, you kind of know how the match is going to go now, with Hangman Joe in a rematch with more time. Maybe just be a good match. Like I don't think adding stipulations or apparatus or cages or weapons makes a match better. In a meta sense, the average fan a mainstream fan might get more excited. Oh, this is something extra. But for me, I'm more of a fan of a straight up, one-on-one, keep it in the ropes for the most part match, because I think you want to reward people who are really good at that, and that's where the real craft is staying within the line, so to speak. But I get it. I mean, it's not like it's not like a criticism. It's just kind of a leaning that I have. But I will say I was really happy, Chris, that Hangman got through a promo and did not end with, "and I'm going to kill you or ruin you." Like, he didn't have that kind of promo tick that he has, which is like at the end, he's always got to say, "I'm going to kill you," or imply just like your career will be over, or whatever, like whether it's a euphemism or a literal word. It was nice because it wears out. Like he's capable of like we saw tonight, like not doing that, and it can still land. So I mean, it's a little snarky of me to say it, but really it's a pattern with him that I think is the weak point in his promos. The yelling tonight was fine, but this was the time to yell. You know, when you're intense, you're brawling, they attacked you, but most of the time it's not. And whether it's MJF overmodulating a microphone every time, every promo when he is, you know, Jake Roberts didn't have to yell because he was really good. MJF doesn't have to yell. It works against him. Joe, I feel the same way about and always have. I've never liked his frothing at the mouth, yelling bug-eyed promos and going back to TNA, but always been criticism. I've always criticized them and felt like he was just so, and again, it's a critique that is it's a compliment framed as a critique because I want to say not everybody can be as good as Joe not yelling, and some people need to yell in order to get people's attention. Joe doesn't, and also Hangman doesn't. He just goes to that too often. So, but this is the exception that sort of maybe proves the rule if that is how that saying should be used. Anything you want to add to that, Chris? That segment or Bill?
Yeah, I think Hangman's been a bit better than that recently. I think his go-to has been ruin your life, which I think is okay. I tend to draw the line at end your career. That's kind of as bad as I'm willing to go. Hurt you, maim you, injure you, put you on the shelf, all fine. But he's been a little better at that recently, and I'm glad he seems to be fixing it.
I want more often than not, meaning always, unless you can really make a case to justify it, winning should be enough.
Yeah.
This is pro wrestling. When you have to say I'm going to kill you, end your career, maim you, ruin your life, what you're saying is winning a wrestling match on a pro wrestling show or winning a title or retaining a title isn't enough. It doesn't really count unless we amplify it to something way beyond the conflict. Like, I don't want to hear my favorite NFL player saying, you know, we're not just going to win on Sunday. We're going to make it impossible for our rivals to even play next week or ever again. Like, and I know football's different and wrestling is a bunch of people punching and maiming each other, and it's different. But, like, that would take away from the sport. It's like the football game itself, the score, the result, and the standings. That's everything. That's everything. In pro wrestling, if they frame wins and losses and titles as everything, you can get away with that. And then the exception should be, I'm going to maim you, put you on the shelf. Like, when everyone is saying that, it makes it seem like scoring a 3 count or submitting someone isn't important. And you have the freedom to tell the story that we are here in the biggest humiliation. The thing that scares a heel opponent more than anything is losing. Not losing their career, losing their life, losing their family, being put on just losing a match. Tell the story that is what is the biggest humiliation for a heel. If you're consistent with that and don't break from it, it works, it sells. And then you don't have to, it's like, it's my writing, you know, I go back to my journalism training and stuff. It's like you're taught, like, don't add a bunch of adjectives. Just choose the right word that doesn't need a bunch of adjectives and adverbs to describe it. Pick the best word. Don't pick a common word and then add a bunch of adjectives. Write a sentence that has a punch without an exclamation mark. And by God, never put 2 exclamation marks at the end of it. If you think you have to, 1, grow up. And number 2, refine your sentence and pick better words. Go into the thesaurus, do more reading in your free time so it comes more naturally. Whatever. I mean, journalism classes are, you know, mean to people who show up and don't want to hone their craft. But I bring that discipline to, like, obviously don't do all caps, don't underline. It's why I don't like stylized wrestler names. Like, I'm against anything that draws undue attention to itself visually. That's how I feel about promos. Don't draw undue attention to yourself through yelling and screaming and swearing and threats. Dial it down and it will work. It has, and then when someone does yell, you're like, ooh, this guy's got my attention. This is different. If everyone's doing it, or, you know, Hangman does it 3 out of 4 promos or 7 out of 8 promos, you get numb to it.
All that to say, tonight was justified.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah. This was the example when you wish it hadn't been done for 2 months beforehand.
I think this is a very philosophical issue with the way wrestling is right now. If all we're thinking about is winning and losing, because that is the basis of your sport, we shouldn't be thinking about people trying to injure others, because that's outside the bounds of the sport.
Yep.
And then when that does happen, the commentator should act shocked that this has gone beyond what we're used to. You know, we're used to people cheating to win a match, to pin someone's shoulders down, to lock them in a submission hold. We're used to that. That is still outside the rules, but it's all in the aspect of winning a match. But when we're looking at just trying to hurt someone that's out of bounds, we shouldn't be doing that. And then it adds a whole level of gravity to those matches where there is a real personal issue.
Yep.
And it makes those cage matches, those I Quit matches mean so much more. And I think we have ECW to blame for this. We're so desensitized to these gimmick matches now that you can't do that because people aren't going to watch a pay-per-view with no gimmick matches on it.
You don't think they will?
I don't think so. Not this day and age. Ring of Honor tried it. And I've made this point dozens of times on these post shows.
Yeah.
Just good wrestling does not sell shows anymore. And it didn't, going back to the ridiculously stacked rosters of the early 2000s in Ring of Honor. When you look at the people that Ring of Honor could put on a single show and where some of those people are now, and they never drew more than 1,500 people to a building.
I think if you look at the... Yeah, I get that. I think if you have WWE and they have characters who are over and titles that matter and pay-per-view names, annual, titles to pay-per-views that are historically significant, you can get people interested in the title or a win and a loss and do a show without gimmickry or stipulations or structures and sell a show based on Cody Rhodes' journey, Sami Zayn's journey, the rivalry between two good tag teams and one who you clearly want to see win. I think you can pull that out. I mean, obviously WWE doesn't do 8-match and 9-match shows very often, just kind of SummerSlam, WrestleMania. But even these off shows, I mean, I think you can, but you and the benefit to it is you create a baseline that makes the times when you do it more effective and more special. So anyway,
I mean, philosophically, I agree with you. I would love to see us go back to that, but I don't think today's audience is interested in that. And
I think you're underestimating how much a sophisticated, well-told, nuanced booking structure done for a year and a half would hit the reset button, and people would.
That's the key.
Yeah,
because you need that year and a half. Right now, you can't do it.
Yeah,
you need to re-educate and retrain your viewers that what's important. I think,
I think you can do that concurrently. I think you can give them their gimmick matches, and then while you're doing that, go a year and a half from now, we're going to not do that anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
But we need to build ourselves to the point where we can, and you don't have to do it all at once. I mean, you can kind of just suddenly people go, wait, this cage match feels special because we haven't seen one for a year, and suddenly it's like, whoa, this means more. It's like, yeah. Totally if you get to go, yeah. All right. I have all these analogies in my head, but the point's made without them, and we want to move on. All right. I like back to JV's email. I really like the Steamboat FTR Stokely segment. It was a great way to get more heat on FTR and Stokely, and their prior relationship made it make sense. The crowd also seemed to eat it up. I feel like the announce team was way too slow in picking up on the fact that Mark Briscoe wasn't making his way to the ring after his entrance music had been playing for quite some time. Oh. I didn't notice that. Did you, Chris?
It felt a little long where the music was playing, nobody was coming out, and nobody said anything.
Yeah. My favorite it didn't jump out of his bed. My favorite thing is Daniel Garcia walking through a crowd of 5,000 people, and he's walking through the crowd down the steps, and he wears an N95 mask probably because he doesn't want to catch a cold or get COVID. So he's like, I'm going to be around a bunch of these fans, and a lot of them have germs, are going to be right in my face yelling at me, going, "You're going to lose!" And there's all the spittle, all the projectile germs, and science. Undisputed science says that's exactly how viruses are spread. That's how you get a cold or a cough or whatever. You get sick. So he's like, I'm just going to wear a white mask to the ring and then take it off right when I'm about to jump over the barrier. And he could be taking care of a relative who has during COVID, one of my closest relatives had a health issue where if I had to take care of him and I got sick, it would be bad. He could with the lung issue. So, you never know people's story. So Tony Schiavone goes, what's he doing wearing that white mask? What good's that gonna do? And I was like, just like, do you need to draw attention to that? And then he took it off and it wasn't a story. So I was like, Tony, I could be wrong, but I don't think it was like a fashion choice. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I completely missed something. Correct me, chat room, or Chris, if you do. I just think he didn't want to get sick, and he's walking through a bunch of fans who are going to be yelling and throwing spittle in. It's projectile spittle in his eyes and mouth and nose.
I think Tony meant it wouldn't protect him in the match, but that's not how it came across.
But who would think that? Like, who would think that would protect him in the match? Like, who you're trying to fool? We know it's you, Dan. Well, yeah, that's what made it so obvious. It wasn't to protect him. It was clearly he just didn't. I think he wanted to covertly get away with it and not have it. Maybe he could have worn a black cloth mask over to make it look like it was part of his outfit.
I thought I could be wrong on this because it's a while since I listened, but I thought the science said masks were more for the protection of the people around the wearer than they are for the protection of the wearer. I thought they were more effective at prevent. So,
but it's
point
sure,
is taken. Yeah,
but and it's also for sure both. You're 100%, because if your mouth and nose are covered, that's too. I mean, you still can get sick from your eyes, but then 95 is not going to let the germs in your mouth or your nose. And how often are you at a grocery store and someone in line leans in and goes, "Oh, let me get this out of your way," and you see a little spittle and you're like, "Oh my God, if in 3 days I get sick, it's going to be this moment that they pass those germs. They take 3 days to spread in your body, and now you're sick." And if I had a mask, that wouldn't have landed in my mouth, and it's like, you're grossed out. But obviously, a lot of this is just touching your eyes too. You know, if you touch a metal surface and you touch your eyes, that's how you get a cold too, or scratch your nose. So, anyway, I don't want to go back to that, but he's in that. But actually, Chris, I'll say maybe he was feeling under the weather, and he was just as a gesture not wanting to get 150 people sick by walking past him too. All right, I just don't think attention need to be drawn to it.
No.
All right, some Shivani hate here. Adam Kidd says Shivani ruins more wrestling than anything else. Sadler goes, Shivani's so bad, we need Taz back. And Derek Mitchell says, I thought David Crockett was the worst back in Jim Crockett Promotions, but Tony is so cringe.
Ooh, that might be a step too far.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think they got the wrong half of the WCW team. I would love to have Mike Tenay back on commentary. I loved Mike Tenay when he was the lead in TNA, and I'd love to have him back on the air now, way more than I want to hear Shivani talking.
Yeah. I get it. Yep. All right. The problem with having two of the same gimmick match on the same night is that the result of the first match usually gives away the result of the second match. When the heels win one, the baby faces will win the other, or vice versa. It's such a small sample size, Chris, but I mean that does play into it.
Yeah. I mean it did look like the Death Riders were going to win as well and do the heel sweep. But I take the point. It is the sort of thing that when you've been watching wrestling long enough, it tends to go through your head.
Yeah. I thought it was having the baby faces had the advantage, but then taking it away because of the Don Callis family attacking Briscoe. I thought that worked, because it's a little awkward for the baby faces to every 2-3 minutes have an advantage. Mm-hmm. And so they found a workaround for that in a way that made storyline sense. You could imagine, Don Callis like, all right, I'll take this advantage away. All right. 10, why does a referee need to be on top of the cage when the wrestlers to count a pin? Can't he or she just simply look up and make a reasonable call? Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, there's no pins. He had to be up there to hear the I surrender type thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's a long way up, so someone could go, I quit, and you don't hear them, and then they just die because they're choked to death. Yeah,
wouldn't put it past him.
No, I know Darby got set on fire, but at least nobody. What's the worst? What is the biggest crime outside of the fictional wrestling landscape that we saw tonight? Poison ether on a cloth, plastic bag over a head. What was the kind of the thing that felt like, okay, did we really need to go there, or did they? I mean, obviously Darby being set on fire is the obvious thing. Yeah.
But people have been set on fire in wrestling for decades. That's not amusing. There was a stun gun briefly, but even that, that's not a deadly weapon in most situations. It's hard to say. Maybe it might be Toni Storm putting the glass on her fists. Actually, that might be the worst of it.
Yeah. All right. Why did Danny Garcia release a chokehold that was clearly working simply because OC had his hands in his pockets?
Wrestling.
Yeah. So my thought when Orange did the pockets thing is, this is too serious. This is blood and guts. Other people are relying on you, and we're past the point of playing psychological games. Like, his rationale for it is, I get in people's heads. But in a match with this level of violence and the stakes that they were, I would have skipped it in this match.
I like where they went with it, though, and I think you don't get the kind of fun spot of having his hands stapled into his pockets if he doesn't try to do it, and it's always going to get the crowd behind him. So yes, but I think the ends in this case do justify the means. You are muted.
That didn't matter. I was trying to find the window with the next part of his question anyway, so nothing I said mattered there. But thank you, though. Next up, the submission scramble between Kyle O'Reilly and Mox to end the men's match was a thing of beauty. Probably my favorite ending to a blood and guts match in AEW history to this point. So we focused on O'Reilly, but the craftsmanship of the holds and the reversals, it was really well done. I mean, that's why I feel weird because I was like, Kyle O'Reilly and Roger Strong shouldn't be at this match. I didn't say that. I just thought, I don't know, can you do better? Like they just are not really pushed. And I was soft on that. It wasn't a big criticism. But here I am going, but it's okay that O'Reilly won if they want to push him again, because I'm not against if they commit to it and they think they have a lane to do it, because O'Reilly is so good. My point is he's just been defined down so much. But if they look at the roster and go, let's just give this, let's see if we can get one more push out of him. Is he our AJ Styles type, where we can always just kind of rev him up. He obviously doesn't have the main event history that AJ does, but in a way like WWE does with AJ, sometimes he just kind of lurking, and then every once in a while he gets pushed. I mean, he's good enough. Maybe they can make it work, Chris, and maybe that's what they're doing. We'll see. But that sequence is an example of how good he is.
Yes, and it's also an example of that we forget that Jon Moxley can do things other than stab forks in people.
Yes,
because Moxley played his part in that too.
Yep.
I think what we've forgotten in this whole discussion about Kyle O'Reilly is everybody's rescue job has to start somewhere. So if this is the start to repairing him as a true legitimate threat, you have to do that in some way. And this is a really good way to kickstart it. We know he's capable.
Yep.
What better way to remind us of how good he is? I was just as impressed with how Strong turned it on as well. Like the two of them, and I think this is a symptom of the dearth of top level talent that's available to Tony Khan right now.
Yeah,
I think if you had Swerve, if you had Ospreay, if you had MJF, Strong and O'Reilly aren't in this match. Briscoe probably isn't even in this match.
Yeah,
but you've got to work with what you've got, and we spoke a few weeks ago about Samoa Joe is getting 2 title shots in a row because there isn't anyone else. Well, okay. So let's make some other people. And the only way you're going to do that is by taking some people who have been in main event level in the past and trying to see if you can put them in the microwave.
Yep. Standard Deviation chimes in. I thought the commentators had an opportunity to sell the 15-month story that necessitated this match, but they didn't cover any of it. Instead, we got Excalibur laughing at Darby and Broken Glass. Excalibur is better than usual, I think, in terms of his gut instinct. His reflex is to laugh at a big spot like he's sitting on a couch with some buddies watching a wrestling show. My God. It's like, please look at this like you're watching something violent with high stakes instead of what a spot that wrestler just did to entertain me that took a chance and could have gotten him. He goes into Santa laugh. It's like, I thought there was more restraint in that regard. I think we're so used to it, we don't realize how absolutely ridiculous and counterproductive it is to kind of the vibe of things, and how the way people perceive a match is defined in great part by how announcers act. And if you have an announcer whose instinct is to treat spots with, what a spot, whoa, did you see that? Instead of, oh, that's going to hurt, oh, this is going to be, and talk about the ramifications of it, like an NFL commentator talking about a hard sack on a quarterback. They don't go, oh my God, Tom Brady just got, that was quite, no, they like, oh God, Brady's just got hit, it's going to affect the game. How did he hold on to the ball? They treat it seriously. So now I blow up my voice imitating Excalibur.
I think that we do see this sometimes in UFC. Joe Rogan's notorious for doing it. Just when people get knocked the heck out, he will laugh. But I think what Excalibur might be going for there, and I'm giving him probably more credit than he deserves, he's trying to be relatable. Because you're right, that is the kind of reaction you have when you're watching a show with 5 friends. And he's trying to get into that mindset. He wants people to feel like he's in their living room talking to them about the match, which is fine if you are the color guy. But he's the lead commentator, and he can't do that stuff. He should not be talking about things that way. But one point I do want to take on the commentary on this match, towards the end when they were dragging Darby up on that stage thing and threatening, Danielson very quietly under his breath, well, it was clearly meant to be heard, said, what are we even doing here? And Shivani said the exact same thing back to him. And I'm just like, do you really want to be saying that out loud? Because that sounded like you actually mean that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I just, this wasn't anywhere near as bad as some of the things we've seen AEW try to get away with. But hearing the two of them say that in such a serious tone, we've been pushing for a serious tone, but those aren't the words I would want to be saying in a serious tone, because we're thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. That crossed my mind too. I was like, what? How are we supposed to? And what kind of level are we supposed to take that? Who's it meant for and in what context? Sadler Vision 3, by the way, says about Excalibur laughing at big spots in matches. Collinsworth does that on Sunday Night Football, to be fair. LOL. So yeah, I'd be against it in that context. But the fact that it is done elsewhere doesn't mean it ought to be done, or that it's done by the lead commentator, as you astutely pointed out, Chris.
Yeah.
Overall, back to the JP's email. Overall, I really enjoyed both Blood and Guts matches, but I did think they were slightly lacking in critical story development. As always, love the show, and go VIP. Sorry, I skipped one of his points. I was kind of hoping that the Death Riders would turn on and beat down Moxley after he once again submitted to lose a match, sort of reverse from what they did to Ospreay after Lights Out Steel Cage match. I just think if that's coming, there's going to be a discussion first. They have a different way they want to tell the story. Before we judge, we can be surprised, but I think we want to see what story do they have in mind. If that's where they're going, how do they tell it before we say it should have been tonight? Because they might have something kind of that they're really looking forward to doing, but they just need more time than the sign-off period to rush it.
I don't think we get to complain about a lack of long-term storytelling in AEW, and on one hand, and then ask for a beatdown right away with the other hand. Mm-hmm. You can't have both, right? This faction has been around for a very long time to varying degrees of success. And when it breaks up, it should feel monumental, and it should not be immediate. You can do it before Wrestle Dream. Is it Wrestle Dream that's after Full Gear, or is it no? Wrestle Dream's already happened.
It's
Revolution.
World's
End. Yes, yeah. You can do it by World's End, but I don't think you need it any sooner.
Yeah, the World's There's anyway. There's a political quip in there somewhere. We may not get to World's End before the world ends if someone wants to draw attention away from what's going on today. Okay, let's see. Ducky D says Garcia gave Mox a hell of a look as the show was going off. I wish they had more time.
Good,
but play into that,
yes.
So that's good. By the way, we talked about N95 masks. I asked ChatGPT, and it says they protect you and others. N95 respirators filter out at least 95% of airborne particles, including viruses, bacteria, and dust. They fit tightly in your face, so unfiltered air doesn't leak in and around the edges. So if people are around you aren't sick, the air you breathe is the chance of infection is reduced. But protecting others, it limits the release of your respiratory particles in the air. I've had plenty of them tonight, by the way, landing on my monitor and in front of me as I've talked here. Though not quite as much as a surgical or cloth mask that is specifically designed for source control, but they're very good. Still, because they seal so well, they prevent most of your exhaled particles from escaping. So they do help reduce the spread if you are sick. And that's what in Japan and stuff, you see people wearing masks all the time. And that is not them not wanting to get sick. That is culturally, and I'm quite sure I'm right on this, but I'm not an expert, but I think they do that because they feel they're either missed work yesterday, they're coming back, but they don't want to get others sick, or they feel they might be symptomatic. Yeah. And that is when you're most vulnerable to spreading, is when you're not bedridden yet. You think you're fine, but you're not. That's where most of the colds get spread. So
that was the norm even before the pandemic in Japan.
It was. Oh, for sure. And they have the right idea. And every time I see someone in a mask when I'm out in public, I'm like, oh God, maybe because I got sick right after Christmas last year. I went to a Timberwolves game, and 3 days later I was sick for 2 weeks. And I was like, if I just wore my damn mask walking through the concourse, I probably would have been fine, and then I wouldn't have been sick for it. It's just so worth it in cold season. It's not fun to wear the mask, but I'd rather do that than be sick for a week or a week and a half.
We had similar here. The whole performance community during Pride season, the Pride parade was about 80% of the size because 20% of us were in bed with COVID because of all the shows we were all on, and we all just passing germs back and forth.
And this is so 5 years ago that we're saying it, but it's still around. And once again, it was so nice not getting a cold for a while because everybody's wearing masks everywhere they went when we weren't just staying in our homes and not being around each other. It was so nice for a couple of years. Obviously, terrible things were happening. I'm not saying in the aggregate it was worth it, but it was like, wow, if I wear a mask and everyone wears a mask, I don't have to worry about getting sick with a cold for 3 times during cold season and be miserable. So they work. It's I mean, and yeah, I'm glad that you see people doing it. And again, as Standard Deviation said, it's just courteous. If you are sick but you're going to go to Target, just put a mask on. Be part of the solution, not the problem, if you can. All right, let's see. Anything else you want to add? I mean, about the show.
I think the only thing we didn't touch on was the Young Bucks segment with beating up Jurassic Express and just the continuing that sort of tease of the inevitable Young Bucks face return again. I don't like how they continue to not center on Okada, especially given what he's about to be doing in Japan in January.
I remember we're going to mention this. Yeah.
It's the Bucks are a bigger deal in the US. I get that. And how they interact with Kenny Omega is going to be a central issue of the show for as long as it's around, because they founded the flipping company. But you've got Okada still feels like this joke character, despite the fact that he's now being focused on elsewhere as the legend that he is. And he's about to face Hiroshi Tanahashi in Tanahashi's retirement match. Japanese crowds are not like US crowds. They do not react the same way. When Okada came out to confront Tanahashi and challenge him for the Tokyo Dome, the crowd lost their marbles as soon as the coin toss went. It wasn't even the theme. The coin went and the place just exploded. That is unheard of in Japan. I've been watching New Japan for a long time. I have never heard a reaction like that. It gave me goosebumps. And I'm not even excited for the match just because Tanahashi is so slow now. But you've got a guy who is still revered in Japan, clearly, is still extremely capable, but you're still choosing to sort of de-emphasize him because he's in a faction with 4 other guys who need to be emphasized. There's no way that you can do justice in that stable. Yes, Takeshita's about to break away. Although, again, this man is holding one of the most prestigious titles in the world and doesn't even get a mention this week. Don't even get me started. But Okada's role is just, it's baffling to me. They could do so much if they had shown that clip, because they could get the footage. If they had shown the clip of Okada coming out and the reaction that he got, people would immediately go, oh, Okada is a big deal. Because we've seen it here in the chat a lot of times when we talk about Okada. A lot of people have said, I don't know why I'm supposed to care. That would show it in 30 seconds. Sorry, Eric Kroll. It would not be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And it would also get some people interested in, oh, right, I know Tanahashi was in the cage match a few weeks ago. I know he's a big deal and he's about to retire, and now Okada's facing him. Maybe I'll go watch that.
I get it. I mean, Okada is good at playing the role that he's playing. Can you have him have fun playing this snarky heel who's just yucking it up and having a blast doing American sports entertainment heel work? Can you do that and also build up gravitas and show that he's a big deal? If he eventually turns babyface, maybe that's when they pull that out, but maybe it'll be too late at that point too. But yeah.
From everything I understand, he wanted to do this role. He wanted to play this.
That's the thing.
MJF can do it. He can have gravitas and still be a goof.
That's the thing, yeah.
So it's possible.
But Okada is built for big match shows, not weekly TV. He is like Nick Bockwinkel. He was my number 1 heel growing up, managed by Bobby Heenan, AWA champ. There was nothing ever impressive about him in a squash match on TV, and it was the era of squash matches. Flair. He didn't have a good finisher because his specialty, and Ric Flair was kind of this way too, frankly. Yeah. His specialty was selling for his babyface opponent, taking great bumps. Nick Bockwinkel in his prime, I'll put up there with Ray Stevens, Kurt Hennig, Shawn Michaels. Just great flat back bump taker. I mean, honestly, look up like circa 1981 Nick Bockwinkel. Actually, we talk about who the best opponent for Ric Flair was, Rick Steamboat. I mean, I'd say Nick Bockwinkel's best opponent for Hulk Hogan ever, because he helped make him. Yeah. And the bumps he took are better than bumps anyone ever did. He took them like Shawn Michaels took him for Hogan without looking like a cartoon. And so, but if he wrestled a squash match, you go, why is this guy headlining? What's the big deal? There's nothing physically intimidating about him. He's not that big, but he made the babyface opponents look like $1 million, and he could then sell you tickets based on his promos. But Okada doesn't carry himself with that gravitas, but he also can't impress people in a squash match, so to speak. Like, he's not a flashy wrestler. He is a big match wrestler. When there's an epic match with a big time opponent and you have that Japan atmosphere. But then if you're in AEW and you don't have the audience knowing that, to your point, Chris, you have to find a different way to communicate to them that this guy's a big deal. And, when he got signed, it wasn't just with Rich Fan, but Rich Fan and I remember just, we had a decision or a discussion on it. We're like, Tony Khan needs to make the decision. He's in the Okada business. If you sign him and pay him, you just, it might go against instincts, because Tony Khan didn't grow up with a barely English-speaking, non-flashy wrestler. It goes against what AEW is built on. It's flashy wrestlers and people, Chris Jericho and John Moxley or Kenny Omega. But if you're going to sign him, like, just define him immediately to your audience as this is wrestling royalty. Yeah. And nobody can beat him. And he has proven himself in one continent. Now he's going to prove himself over here. But they didn't do that. And we're way deep into it now. So I don't know if you don't want to just start doing it and then pull back. So it's like, maybe you wait for him to turn babyface and you tell that story, but I don't have a good answer, because I would have done this differently. But I'm not going to say that, even while I lament that they didn't do better with Okada, and I make sort of excuses, or at least explain why I think they took the approach they did. I'm really enjoying him too. I mean, he is really fun. I mean, him, looking at, the snarkiness of him, he is really good at that, but it comes at the expense of him seeming like a legit main event draw.
I mean, if you could avoid saying bitch every week, I'd be a lot more into it. But I enjoyed, for example, the time where he pretended to cry because he pressed the wrong button and cut off someone's Edge's music. Like, I enjoyed that.
Right.
So this might be more of a flagship discussion, hint, hint. But I think you've got people like you mentioned, like Bockwinkel and Flair, whose strength was in making the babyface look like a legitimate threat and then pulling the win out of nowhere. Then you've got people like Brett and Sean, who were not necessarily extremely flashy, but in a squash match, they had those things that they could pull out that were impressive looking, but they could also go long. Okada's strength as a wrestler is in the way he tells a story through a match. He is one of the most gifted in terms of ring psychology I've ever seen. His match with Kenny Omega that went 70 plus minutes was an absolute masterpiece of storytelling. And it was helped immensely by Don Callis and Kevin Kelly telling the story on commentary that followed up what they were doing in the ring. That's where Okada shines, is his ability to tell a story. If he can tell a story in 10 minutes, he can do that in North America. You need the right person on commentary to help him tell it, but it doesn't have to be a 70-minute epic for him to get this across. I don't think Tony knows how to book it. That's the problem.
That's what I was going to interject if you didn't. Because I think Okada's catching wind of the culture.
Yeah.
And not the culture of American wrestling, culture of Tony Khan and AEW. The culture is not like, oh, I'm going to rely on the announcers and Tony Khan to tell this nuanced story and treat this like a sport. I always refer to that opening press release. It's going to be a sports league with records, and we're going to. Tony hasn't done that. Tony's just he's booking to 14-year-old, 24-year-old, and 34-year-old Tony Khan. I mean, that's everything is about what he liked, and it's reproducing it. And he had a big audience, and he's got big TV deals, and it's worked. But let's be honest, that's what he's doing. He's not a guy who I don't think has the level of appreciation where he could explain what you just did. And if he did have that in him, I think he probably would have tried to integrate that into the Okada story, and frankly, would be directing announcers to do it. But I think he's more into the ECW blood and guts sicko style, and I think he's more into tropes and lights out and leaps off of cages and high spot density. I don't know that he's. I don't. Has he expressed like reverence and appreciation for Okada's style the way that you explained, or has he appreciated it because he knows it's a big deal in Japan and his audience loves it?
He's done it in a way that begs the question, honestly.
Okay.
Okada is over because he's over. which is the correct way to use begs the question, by the way, folks.
Yes.
He is, I think he's a fan of Okada because he knows he should be. I don't know that he actually enjoys what he sees from Okada. This is going to sound weird. I think the way Okada fixes this is he needs to go away and learn a new hold. He needs a finish that is visually impressive. I hate the Rainmaker, personally. But he did, for a while, change his finish and started using, it's a Cobra Clutch. No, that ain't going to do it either, buddy. You need something that is actually breathtaking to look at, but preferably still safe. He is the kind of wrestler, he's a Zack Sabre Jr. style. He's even a Randy Orton style because he's tall, he's wiry, he's extremely well built. If you saw him in a normal run of life, you'd think that guy is jacked, but he's in the ring with a bunch of Parks and Brian Cages. He doesn't look like he is.
Right.
He is not anything impressive to look at unless you are a wrestling aficionado. You need something that he can do that people go, wow. His drop kick, for example, is up there with Bob Holly and Jim Brunzell. Like, it's insanely good.
Yep.
But you're not going to finish a match with a drop kick.
Lance Storm.
Lance Storm, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's quite on the level of the others, though, to be fair.
Fair enough.
But I think if he had just one flashy thing he could do, you could give him some squash matches. Yeah, and he could say, I can last 70 minutes, but why bother? You're not worth my time.
Yeah. Ducky says, AEW crowds respond to Okada like a superstar, especially in pay-per-view matches. I don't think he's in a bad place at all. This goes back to my go-to example of Dixie Carter talking to the first 3 rows of fans at TNA shows who told her she's doing a great job. You got those fans. I'm not saying you shouldn't keep doing what makes those fans go to your pay-per-view events, give you the biggest crowds of the month, pay good ticket prices, and respond to the product. And I know Zach Barber's brought this up with me and others. I'm not against. I don't think they should sacrifice that. But my point is that's limiting. The people who go to a pay-per-view are one type of fan. To grow, you need to deliberately, strategically do things that appeal to a different type of fan also, who don't bring with them the Okada reverence based on a New Japan World subscription or listen to podcasts or reading about that. You want to expand beyond that group. And so yes, pay-per-view crowds respond to Okada. That doesn't mean your job is done. What it means is you have something to work with, but you got to now bring other people into it. And that's always from day one been a critique of AEW, is they wanted to super serve an audience that knew. They already knew. And now we're going to give you what you want. And they just felt everyone else just catch on along the way. And they've turned people away because that kind of clubhouse vibe, or you should know, and if you don't, you're not the cool kid approach, or out of laziness or whatever. I mean, I don't prescribe a motive or a reason. It's just a fact. They don't do a good job introducing the product to people in a way where they feel they can merge into the product. I mean, some do, but that's not what their strength is. And so my point, a pay-per-view crowd treating Okada like a star is a given. The critique doesn't mean that's not happening. The critique is, how do you expand that audience by 10 times who also revere him?
We're not trying to attract the pay-per-view crowd. We're trying to attract more people. Right?
Yep.
And if you want, you talked for a long time about the 2nd million. And I remember very clearly coming on one of the shows and saying, can we solidify the fact that there's a 1st million? I don't think the 2nd million even exists. We need to get back to that 1st million. Mm-hmm. You can't grow your audience by continuing to do the same thing that has driven them away in the first place.
Right.
Nobody is going to turn off an Okada match if you take away the Rainmaker and give him a more flashy finish. You don't even have to take it away. Just don't make it his finish anymore. Mm-hmm. No, that doesn't change Okada fundamentally for the people who love him, but it changes him for the people who don't get it. And that's the key. You have to get the people who currently don't get it, because they're the ones that are going to help your company grow. I'm going to watch AEW no matter what happens because I enjoy the wrestling that I see there. So why are you trying to market to me? You don't need to. I'm not the one that you need to keep there. It's the ones who are like, I'm kind of annoyed with WWE and the fact that all of their people are old and they're doing this and they're doing that. Give me an alternative. Mm-hmm. And then AEW is like, Japanese guy who's awesome. Why is he awesome? I don't know that. Mm-hmm. So
exactly. No. Yep. I totally agree. I mean, a couple comments and then we'll wrap up here. Derek Mitchell says, I've said 1,000 times, not everyone watches or have the reverence for New Japan.
Yeah.
You don't need everybody, but if you introduce if you treat Okada like a star and let people know why and show people why, don't just rely on the crowd responses and regular, based knowledge. Zach Barber goes, Tony has encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling, Wade. Yeah, of course he does. My point is, what does he have a passion for? Of course he knows. The whole premise of the question, Zach, if you actually listen carefully to my actual words, is Tony aware that people revere Okada and that's why he signed him? Or does Tony have a reverence for the specific style that Chris is talking about? Because I don't see Tony's booking or leading his announcers or his presentation of matches leaning on that as much as he does we're going to do hardcore wrestling for the sickos. We're going to do super high spot dense matches. What makes Okada, as Chris explained, stand out is a more subtle storytelling where you're more invested in what's happening. Not that he doesn't have moments of brilliance, and not that Kenny Omega wasn't peak athlete in pro wrestling during their classics. So you had that. It's not like it's some mat-based, Gunther match with no high spots. Like I'm not saying that, but I just haven't seen in Tony that kind of reverence for that slice of what people loved about that era of New Japan. That's my point, Zach. And I think I made it. You might have missed it because I kind of snuck it in at the end there. Nobody's complaining. Ducky D says, nobody's complaining except, quote, the people already know. Okada's not living up to the expectations of the people who expect more. Yeah, you do sort of have like, oh my God, we're not worthy. I see Okada in person. Yay, pop. But also in their spare time, they're probably venting on social media about the fact that he's not getting pushed or presented the way they want. So they'll pop for him, but it doesn't mean that means they agree with how he's being pushed. I think
it's a good point though, because like to the average fan, why they don't know that Okada should be doing more. They don't know anything about it.
Well, I'll read it, Chris. Standard V shifts. I only know Okada from his AW run in the Kenny matches. I feel he's a big deal and that he's steadily risen in importance since he arrived. I feel like he's almost a co-world champion.
And I think I saw this sentiment a lot online this week, especially in the context of the Nixon Newell Miranda Alize thing. People don't come into AEW and have winning streaks and go straight for the title. That's not how Tony Khan books.
Yep.
They have to steadily build themselves up. And I think doing that even with somebody on the level of Okada, even Ospreay. Ospreay hasn't held the world title yet. And he's way more over and way more fitting to Tony's style of booking than Okada is. I think the fact that they are gradually building Okada up is something that bears pointing out. And it is an excellent counterpoint to what I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's been jobbed out completely and been made to look like a complete joke. He's winning almost always. And he's just showing a few extra aspects of his character. Having said that, I don't think a complete 180 revolution is necessary on this guy. I think you could literally change 2 moves in his moveset, and he would be the kind of person who you can put in a squash match and who does make people sit up and want to watch because of what he's going to do.
Yeah. What makes him great is not particularly compatible with a weekly TV series. That doesn't mean there aren't steps they can take to get you 85% of where you want to get with them. Derek Mitchell says, AW sickos are going to watch every week and pay-per-views, but they don't do anything to attract newer fans. Amen. But some of the sickos are going away. Viewership is down. So they're even losing some of them. Ducky Duck says, I continue to watch AW because they're super serving my taste for the most part. Giving your core audience exactly what they expect and want is a business plan I can get behind. That's the thing. You are behind it, and that is why they have good viewership. It's dropping, but it's good for cable in this era. The whole point isn't do anything that turns off Ducky D. The point is there's nothing that says you have to displace anything that Ducky D likes about what AEW is super serving him, but also do some things to bring more people in. It is not a zero-sum game. You're not displacing anything that people love. I feel like, do I really need to say that every single time I say this? Like, I think I do. You don't have to give up anything to also gain something else. It is not a zero-sum game in that way. There's plenty of space in the AEW. All we're saying is, while the announcers are talking, do something different that doesn't take anything away from why Ducky D loves the product and feels super served, but the commentary does something more to bring people in. There's half a dozen examples where you can do that, like you said with the video and some footage. Standard Deviation says, I don't view Okada as a John Cena level superstar, though. If that's where he could be, then he falls short of the mark in AEW.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. John Cena's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, once in a generation, I should say, who has a complete package. I don't think anyone believes Okada has a complete package. He's not a bad promo. I would say. And if he spoke English, he'd probably be even better. But he's not John Cena. But who is?
Yeah.
There isn't anyone in WWE right now who's John Cena. You could argue maybe Cody, but I don't think Cody is on Cena's level for promos, and certainly not in the ring. He might be on his level for community work, but that's not what we're talking about here. I think this is going to sound like sacrilege. If you look at someone like Baron Corbin got over in NXT because of his squash matches where the crowd was literally counting how long it took him to beat the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one move. That End of Days is a visually stunning finisher that literally anybody his height could do. If you give Okada a move like the End of Days, he is instantly more interesting to the casual viewer because it's something that looks impressive that they can't do, and they want to see what this guy is doing. He's doing a short arm clothesline that Jake the Snake Roberts used to use as a setup to a finisher that is now a mid-match move.
Yep.
Like Jake's setup to the DDT was a short arm clothesline, and Okada uses it roughly as a finish.
Yep.
How is that impressive?
Well, so much of what that's a question for a longer discussion. Because I think it's interesting because one, he should have something flashier, but two, there's a lesson there that you can sell anything you want if you tell the story. And that plays into the idea of they haven't even tried to tell that story with Okada. I shouldn't say haven't tried. They haven't done a sufficient job with the Okada story to bring new people in because they're not seeing it with their own eyes, what makes them great. But there's certain limitations with him too. Ducky D says Okada's secondary finisher is a zoom out middle finger. And technically, Zach Barber says technically Okada's is a ripcord clothesline. Standard Deviation says, wasn't Okada the Cena of Japan? No. By the way, I will say Cody has some assets on his promos that Cena doesn't, because Cena has never come across. He's come across a little. I wrote about this in my latest Wade Keller News Bulletin. There's always something about him that felt a little sketchy in terms of his sincerity. It felt kind of performative. And with Cody, you just think this. Not that Cena's a real wrestling fan, but Cena seemed to be up to something else always, which is like selling merchandise and whatever. Cody just feels like an old school guy who just loves wrestling and is.
I don't know that I would agree because. So corporate Cena, definitely. But to get to that point, he was edgy Cena for a long time.
True. Yep.
Pulling out bags of peanuts on stage and stuff.
Cena's a better promo than Cody Rhodes on Cena's best day, but Cody has a different kind of promo that works in a way that feels more authentic to him, in a way that resonates with the audience. Chris, I got to wrap up.
Yep. Yeah, let's do it.
Yep, let's do it. So, we will wrap up there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Chris. I always love having you on. Thanks. We always go long. Always feel like, we have gone longer before.
Yes, we have.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Just last reminder right now, the VIP sale's going on. So here's the code, pwtorch.com/govip, coupon code NOV2025, as in November, NOV2025. And take $9 off a sub. That'll bring a 1 month sub down to $3.99. Check it out. Just dive in, see if you like it. Sign up on our podcast feed, and I think you will. Thank you, everybody, and we'll be check out the flagship if you haven't yet with Sean Radican, and I'll be by Friday night after SmackDown. Thanks to the chat as always. You guys are great. Really, always appreciate your contributions to the show. And Chris says a 7-star podcast is coming up soon on the VIP side of things. Ducky D says thanks both of you. Great show as usual. Derek, count your days. What? Derek Mitchell says, thanks, Wade and Chris. And anyway, bye, everybody.